Did you kill 13 people?
It would be improper for me to comment on my LA convictions and on my pending case here in San Francisco.
Why?
Because of my appeals.
Are you appealing these because you say you're innocent? You didn't kill 13 people?
That is correct.
You didn't kill 13 people?
Again, it would be improper for me to comment in any regard to that question.
You have now entered a very rare group of people in this country. You're in the ranks of Charlie Manson, Ted Bundy. You claim you didn't commit these murders, but you're right in there now as far as everybody else is concerned.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Tell me what kind of emotions you got going through you right now.
I'll tell you what, I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why?
I don't care to explain that. Let the quote stand for itself. People in this day and age are brainwashed and programmed like a computer at being nothing more than puppets. This nation, this country is founded in violence. Violent delights tend to have violent ends. Madness is something rare in individuals, but in groups, people, and ages, it is a rule. Killing is killing, whether done for duty, profit, or fun. Men murdered themselves into this democracy.
You're good at reading your script, Richard, but you're not much at answering my direct questions. A lot was made that you're a devil worshiper. Do you worship the devil? Have you ever studied Satanism?
There are different sects of Satanism.
Have you studied, just yes or no, have you studied Satanism?
Yes, I have.
Are you a worshiper of the devil?
No comment.
Come on, Richard.
I can tell you a little bit about Satanism.
Well, I'm interested in hearing what you got to say then.
It is undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. It is power without charity. The Satanist admits to being evil.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil. Evil has always existed. The perfect world most people seek shall never come to pass, and it's going to get worse. The great epochs of our life is when we gain the courage to rebaptize our evil qualities as being our best qualities.
Ricardo Leyva, also known as Richard Ramirez, was born in El Paso, Texas, on February the 28th, 1960, to Julian and Mercedes Ramirez. Richard was the youngest child of 6, epileptic, and described by his father as being a good boy, until his involvement with drugs. Ramirez admired his father, but at the age of 12, he found a new hero, which was his cousin Mike, a Vietnam veteran and an ex-Green Beret. When Mike came home from Vietnam, he shared gruesome pictures of rape and human torture to Ramirez, who became fascinated with the illustrated brutality. The two spent a lot of time together, smoking marijuana and talking about war. On one such day, Mike's wife began to complain about her husband's laziness. Mike's reaction was to kill her by shooting her in the face in front of Richard. He was then sentenced to 7 years for murder. By the age of 18, Richard was a persistent drug user and a chronic sweet eater, this resulting into him having tooth decay and extreme bad breath. He also became involved in Satan worshipping, and his general poor appearance enhanced his satanic image. He was already arrested on numerous drug and theft charges, so Ramirez decided to move to Southern California. There he advanced from simple theft to breaking into people's homes. He became very proficient at it and eventually started to linger in the homes of his victims. On June 28, 1984, his burglaries turned into something far eviler. Ramirez entered through an open window of Glassell Park. The resident who lived there was Jenny Vincow, age 79. According to Philip Kahlo's book, The Night Stalker, he became very angry after not finding anything of any value to steal. But then, he began stabbing the sleeping Vincow, eventually slitting her throat. But the act of him killing aroused him sexually, and he had sex with the corpse before leaving. Ramirez remained quiet for 8 months, but the memory he savoured of his last killing had run dry, but he needed more. So on March 17th, 1985, Ramirez jumped 22-year-old Angela Barrio outside her condo. He shot her, kicked her out the way, and headed into her condo, but inside was her roommate, Daily Okazaki, aged 34, who Ramirez immediately shot and killed. But Barrio remained alive, just out of pure luck. The bullet had ricocheted off the keys she had held in her hands, as she lifted them to protect herself. Within an hour of killing Okazaki, Ramirez struck again in Monterey Park. He jumped 30-year-old Tsai Lin Yu and pulled her out of her car onto the road. He shot several bullets into her and fled. A policeman found her still breathing, but she died before the ambulance arrived. But Ramirez's thirst was not quenched. He then murdered an 8-year-old girl from Eagle Rock just 3 days after killing Tsai Lin Yu. On March 27th, Ramirez shot Vincent Cesara, aged 64, and his wife Maxine, aged 44. Mrs. Cesara's body was mutilated with several stab wounds and a T carving on her left breast. Her eyes were also gouged out. Ramirez had also left footprints in the flower beds, which the police photographed and cast. Bullets were also found at the scene, which were matched to those found at previous attacks. But then, the police realized a serial killer was on the loose. But 2 months after killing the Cesara couple, Ramirez attacked again. Harold Wu, aged 66, he was shot in the head, and his wife, Jean Wu, aged 63, was punched, jumped, and then violently raped. But for unknown reasons, Ramirez decided to let her live. Ramirez's attacks were now in full throttle. He left behind no more clues to his identity, and was named the Night Stalker by the media. Those who survived his attacks provided the police with a description, which was Hispanic, long dark hair, and foul smelling. On May the 29th, 1985, Ramirez attacked Malieve Keller, 83, and her invalid sister, Blanche Wolfe, who was 80, beating each with a hammer. Ramirez attempted to rape Keller, but failed. Using lipstick, he then drew a pentagram on Keller's thigh and the wall in the bedroom. Blanche survived the attack. The next day, Ruth Wilson, 41, was bound, raped, and sodomized by Ramirez, while her 12-year-old son was locked in the closet. Ramirez slashed Wilson once, and then bound her again and her son together, and then left. Ramirez was like a savage animal, as he continued raping and killing throughout 1985. The victims included The citizens of Los Angeles were frightened as more news of the Night Stalker's latest victims circulated. Neighborhood watch groups were formed, and people armed themselves with guns. On August 24th, 1985, Ramirez traveled 50 miles south of Los Angeles and broke into the home of Bill Carnes, aged 29. Also living at the home was his fiancée, Inez Erickson, aged 27. Ramirez shot Carnes in the head and raped Erickson. He demanded that she swear her love for Satan. Then he tied her up and left. Erickson struggled to the window and saw the old orange Toyota Ramirez was driving. But remarkably, teenager James Romero noticed a suspicious car cruising through the neighborhood and wrote down the license plate number. He turned the information over to the police department, and 2 days later, the police located the same Toyota abandoned in a parking lot in Rampart. They were able to get fingerprints from the car's interior. a computer match was made of the prints and the identification of the Night Stalker became known. On August 30th, 1985, the arrest warrant for Richard Ramirez was issued and his pictures were released to the public. On August 30th, Ramirez returned to LA after making a short trip to Phoenix, Arizona to buy cocaine. Unaware that his picture was all over the newspapers, he got off at the Greyhound bus and walked into an alcohol store. The woman working inside recognized him and began shouting that he was the Night Stalker. As he was shocked, he quickly fled the store and headed towards a heavily populated Hispanic area east of Los Angeles. A small mob formed and chased him for 2 miles. Ramirez tried to steal a car, but the owner was underneath it doing repairs. When Ramirez tried to start the engine, the man pulled out from beneath the car and the two struggled until Ramirez escaped. The mob that was in pursuit of Ramirez were now armed with steel rods. They caught up with him, beat him with the rods, and subdued it until the police arrived. Ramirez, fearing that the mob would kill him, raised his hands to the police, begging for their protection. But then he gave in and identified himself as the Night Stalker. Because of the endless appeals on the part of the defense, and Ramirez asked for different attorneys, his trial did not begin for another 4 years. But finally in January 1989, a jury had been selected and the trial began. During the trial, Ramirez attracted several groupies who wrote to him regularly. The trial scene had haunts of the Charlie Manson trial, with women hanging around, clad in black robes. When one of the jurors failed to show up one day and was discovered dead in her apartment from a gunshot wound, many wondered if some of Ramirez's followers were responsible. It was later determined that it was a woman's boyfriend who killed her during an argument that erupted whilst discussing the Ramirez case. On September the 20th, 1989, Richard Ramirez was found guilty on 43 counts in Los Angeles County, including 13 murders, and charges including burglary, sodomy, and rape. He was sentenced to death on each count of murder. During the sentencing stage, it was reported that Ramirez did not want his attorneys to beg for his life. While being led out of the courtroom, Ramirez made the sign of devil's horns with his chained left hand. He told reporters, "Big deal. Death always went with territory. I'll see you in Disneyland." Ramirez was sent to his new home at death row at San Quentin Prison. On October the 3rd, 1966, 30-year-old Six Ramirez tied the knot with one of his groupies, 41-year-old Doreen Lloyd, in a civil ceremony held in San Quentin's visiting room. Lloyd was a self-proclaimed virgin and a magazine editor with an IQ of 152. Ramirez was a serial killer waiting to be executed. Lloyd first wrote to Ramirez after his arrest in 1985, but she was one of many women sending love letters to the Night Stalker. Not willing to give up, Lloyd continued to pursue a relationship with Ramirez, and in 1988, she had her dream fulfilled when Ramirez asked her to be his wife. Due to prison regulations, the couple had to delay their marriage plans until 1996, but death row inmates were not permitted to have married visits, and no exception was made for Ramirez and the virgin Doreen. The situation was likely alright with Ramirez, who said that it was his wife's virginity that made her so appealing. Doreen Lloyd believed that her husband was an innocent man. Lloyd, who was raised as a Catholic, said she respected Ramirez's satanic worship, but this was demonstrated when she gave him a silver wedding band to wear, since satanic worshippers do not wear gold. Richard Ramirez died the 7th of June 2013 at the Marin General Hospital. According to the Marin County coroner, Ramirez died from complications of B-cell lymphoma, a cancer of the lymphatic system. He was 53 years old.